Step into realms where the heart takes flight, where strategy meets the edge of night. The dungeons, dragons, and psychology part decks. Prepare your mind. Now be our guest.
On today's auditory adventure, we're going to be answering the question of why does music have such a profound effect on our emotional immersion when we play a game? I'm Robert Walker, author of Session Zero, the DMG to writing great campaigns in any system, and this is my show where I teach collaborative storytellers how to have more immersive campaigns using psychology. And today we're going to explore the intricate relationship between music and gaming, the emotional impact that it has on us, and how gamers and DMs can harness this power to craft unforgettable experiences. Music, as we know, has the remarkable ability to stir our emotions and evoke memories. When it is seamlessly integrated into a game, it serves as a bridge, connecting the player's emotions to the game world. This connection amplifies the emotional response and takes us deeper into the game's narrative, the characters, and even the setting. You can think of music as the emotional soundtrack to your gaming adventures. It enhances your connection to the story and the characters, and it's not just background noise. It can be a crucial part of your storytelling process. So how should game masters utilize this knowledge to create an immersive experience? First of all, you should ensure that the game's soundtrack complements the narrative and the emotional beats. Use music to manipulate the player's emotional state, guiding them through the highs and lows of your game's story. For example, you might employ some serene melodies during moments of reflection or heart-pounding music during your intense battles. These musical choices will help keep your players engaged and emotionally invested in the game world. So in essence, the game's music becomes a silent storyteller, or not so silent since it is something that's auditory, but it's like a non-narrative storyteller, adding another layer and depth and emotion to the gaming experience. It's not just about selecting any music for a scene. It's about choosing music that aligns with your story's narrative and the emotional journey that you're trying to take your characters on. So one example of this is if you think of The Elder Scrolls. It's a widely popular game. It has been celebrated for its expansive and immersive worlds, and composer Jeremy Soul's masterful compositions beautifully complement the grandeur of the in-game landscapes. The music shifts as you explore different areas, depending on the sensation of it gives you the sensation that you're in a living, breathing world. And you can do the very same thing in your tabletop games. If you plan on what the emotional journey your characters are going to be on when they go to a specific place in your story, a specific town or a dungeon, or you're just trying to set an intense emotional scene and you know what that scene is supposed to feel like, find the music that fits that scene. What are the psychological mechanisms that we are playing with when we listen to music in a gaming context? Well, for that, we know that music in games triggers a cascade of psychological responses. Most importantly, it can release dopamine, which is the pleasure and reward neurotransmitter. It creates positive associations with the game. It can also synchronize with our heart rate and breathing, intensifying our emotional responses and immersion to the game world. It also enhances our sense of presence, making us feel like genuine participants in the game's narrative. In essence, the right music elevates your game from a mere pastime to a very immersive experience. Let's talk a little more about the psychology of it. Some of the key aspects of the complex and multi-dimensional topic that music in games can be. First of all, it has a profound impact on our emotions. Different melodies, harmonies, rhythms, and lyrics can evoke a wide range of emotional responses. For example, upbeat, fast-tempo music with major chords tend to elicit feelings of happiness and excitement, while slow, melancholic music with minor chords can induce sadness or nostalgia. People often use music as a tool to regulate their mood. If you're feeling down, listening to uplifting music can help improve your mood. In much the same way, it can change the mood and the feelings emotionally around the table. Listening to music can affect the brain's reward system. On that release of dopamine we already talked about, adds that enjoyable and somewhat addictive experience, providing a sort of natural high. And if that is an experience people have in your games due to music, and they sort of have that addiction to return to your game, that is a very immersive experience. It also has this ability to trigger memories and nostalgia. Hearing a song from our past can transport us back to specific moments or experiences. This is because music is processed in brain regions closely linked to memory and emotion, such as the hippocampus and the amygdala. So if you think of how to use this in-game, perhaps there's the same tune that plays every time your characters go to a specific town, and you have a different tune for another town, or you have a certain kind of music play when a specific NPC is on stage, and that music will then trigger the memories of the game that they've already experienced when that music was playing. Music also acts as a stress reduction tool. Slow, calming music can lower cortisol levels. It can reduce anxiety. It's often used in relaxation techniques like meditation or in therapy to help people manage stress and anxiety. So if you are in a period where tensions have been high around the table, where maybe there's been anger or there's been too much frustration, playing some calming music as you have a little bit of downtime can really help mitigate that stress. And it's also deeply embedded in culture, playing a crucial role in shaping a cultural identity and social bonds. So you can use this to create a feeling of what a culture is like in your games. For example, if you have a culture that is, wild, druidic elves, you might use some music that is on some traditional instruments such as drums or panpipes or things of that nature that really have sort of that back to earth kind of feel embedded in them, and that can make your social interactions and your cultures in your games much more immersive. So how do you choose the right music for the scenes that you're conveying to your characters? First and foremost, it is crucial to understand the theme and the mood of your campaign or your session. Are you guiding your players through a lighthearted comedic adventure, or is it dark and foreboding and filled with suspense and danger? The tone of your story should heavily influence your music choices. For instance, if you're embarking on a cheerful and whimsical journey, consider selecting music with lively melodies and playful instrumentation. This can set the stage for humorous encounters, quirky characters, and very light-hearted moments, encouraging your players to embrace the fun and immerse themselves in the whimsy of the world. On the other hand, when your players are venturing into the unknown where peril lurks around every corner, you'll want music that heightens tension and suspense. The use of dark and atmospheric scores with eerie, haunting tones can make your players feel the weight of uncertainty and danger, keeping them on the edge of their seats, ready to face whatever challenges lie ahead. But what about those epic battles that punctuate your adventures? Music plays a pivotal role here as well, whether it's a clash with a fearsome dragon or a showdown with a treacherous villain. The right battle music can make a very big difference during that fight. An epic battle theme with soaring melodies and thunderous percussion could influence your players with a sense of heroism and determination. It could fuel their resolve to vanquish foes and emerge victorious, making the encounter feel truly epic. But let's also talk about the ambience and atmosphere. Sometimes it's the subtle soundscape, that immerses players most effectively. When describing a serene forest, for instance, gentle nature sounds like rustling leaves or chirping birds, combined with a soft, soothing music, can help transport your players into that tranquil setting. This combination can create an oasis of calm and tranquility within your game, allowing your players to connect with the natural world and the story that you're weaving. And lastly, adaptability is a key. As a dungeon master, you should be ready to adjust the music on the fly based on your players' actions and reactions. If they unexpectedly veer off into a lighthearted moment during a serious quest, switch the tone of the music accordingly to maintain and enhance that immersion. This adaptability ensures that the music remains a dynamic and integral part of the gaming experience, always enhancing the mood and adding to the narrative flow. So, Dungeon Masters, remember that music is a potent storytelling tool that can elevate your tabletop to new heights. The psychology of music lies in its ability to evoke emotions, enhance immersion, and enrich your players' experiences. So choose your musical accompaniments wisely and watch your players become fully immersed in the epic tales that you're weaving. Let's head over to Tricks of the Trade. Today in Tricks of the Trade, we're going to be diving into a topic that often goes unnoticed, but is just as crucial in crafting an immersive gaming experience as music, and that is the impact of silence, and how the strategic use of quiet moments can enhance immersion just as effectively as music. I have a few tips for you. Number 1, pacing and suspense. One of the most powerful tricks in a Dungeon Master's toolkit is the strategic use of silence to control pacing and build suspense. Think of it as the quiet before the storm. When you lower the volume or even mute the background music during a tense moment or crucial decision, you draw your players' attention to the gravity of the situation. For example, imagine your players are deliberating whether to open a mysterious ancient tomb inside a foreboding forest. As they huddle around the table, you reduce the ambient noise to near silence. Their whispered discussions become more intense, and the anticipation in the room heightens. This quiet moment makes the eventual revelation or consequence all the more impactful. Next is environmental immersion. Silence is a powerful tool for immersing players in the environment you're describing. When you allow moments of silence to prevail, you can create a space for their imagination to fill details. This technique can be effective when you're describing awe-inspiring landscapes or eerie dungeons or even puzzles. For an example, as your players enter a cavernous chamber, pause the background music. Describe the echoes of their footsteps. The distant sounds of dripping water and the faint glow of fungi. This sensory-rich description, coupled with a little silence, can allow the players to immerse themselves in the scene, and it will seem more grand to them. Next is, of course, emotional impact. Just like music, silence can be an emotional amplifier. Music can heighten emotions. Well-timed silence can have a profound effect on feelings as well. When it's used judiciously, it can emphasize moments of shock or grief or revelation. Consider a scenario where a beloved NPC unexpectedly meets their demise. Instead of playing a mournful piece of music, you could choose to let the silence linger. The sudden absence of sound can be just as poignant, if not more so, than any musical track, and it allows your players to process the emotional weight of the moment without any musical cues influencing their reactions. Next, you can use it for transition or shifts in focus. Silence can serve as a tool that will guide your players' focus from one scene or one subplot to another. When you've wrapped up the dramatic encounter or a pivotal moment, allow a brief moment of silence to signal the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. So after a climactic battle, the dust settles and the enemy has been vanquished. Instead of immediately launching into the next scene, let the silence linger. This gives your players a chance to catch their breath, reflect on the events that have just unfolded, and anticipate what lies ahead. And lastly, Player empowerment. Remember that silence can empower your players. Encourage them to embrace moments of silence during roleplay interactions. These pauses can allow players to think more deeply about their characters' responses, fostering richer, more authentic role-playing experiences. For example, during a negotiation with an NPC, you might ask a player, "What does your character say?" Then allow a brief silence for them to formulate their character's response. You can even tell them, "What does your character say? Go ahead and take a moment and think about it." This encourages them to immerse themselves in their roles and consider their character's words carefully, enhancing the depth of the narrative. So while the strategic use of silence is subtle, it is potent. And when it is employed thoughtfully, it can control pacing, immerse players in the environment, amplify emotions, guide transitions, and empower role-playing. So don't overlook the power of quiet moments in your gaming sessions. Remember, they can be just as impactful as music. Thank you so much for joining us today. That is all I have time for. Just a reminder to all of you, I am very near to the end of my master's degree, so I've been very busy over the last few weeks and the next 4 or 5 weeks to come. You can still reach out to me if you would like. You can find me on Instagram at dungeons_dragons_psychology. There you can also find a link to the Linktree, and you can find all of our socials through that link as well. As always, we'll see you next session.